Hello, once again, everyone. Welcome to our Trials to Triumph. I'm Pastor Brad Closter from Living Word North Church in Bel Air, Michigan. Thank you for joining me. Welcome aboard. I want to say welcome to our church family who's watching this and anybody else who might be watching it as well, whether you're part of our church family or not. We welcome you aboard, and may this be a blessing to you. May it be a challenge to you, and I hope it helps. And so whether we are on Facebook or YouTube, I pray that you get some encouragement out of this in Jesus' name. Well, hey, we have been talking about something that I just can't let go of because it's been a great strength to me as I study it out, and hopefully it's been a strength to you as well. And that is, we're talking about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You know, many times we can watch the news or the headlines or the social media, and it typically begins with something about the rich and the famous. And I don't know about you, but the more that days go by, the less I care about what the rich and the famous are doing. I care about what's happening with the everyday person in our life. That's really where I'm at. And so when I look at all of these accounts that we've been talking about of these, what we would consider ordinary people, and the extraordinary things that they're doing, it just gets me fired up because it's exciting to know that God can use ordinary people. I'm an ordinary person, and I don't claim that there's anything certainly not special about me. And so it's exciting for me to know that God can use ordinary people. You know, one of those ordinary people that seemingly comes out of nowhere, not literally, but you know what I mean, is Abraham. And he was originally named Abram. And he came along hundreds of years after the flood, after the Tower of Babel. Noah had lived and done what he did, and now Abram comes along. And it's like just in Genesis 10, we hear about him, or Genesis 11, we hear about Abram for the first time of Shem's descendants. And Shem was one of Noah's boys, and so we hear of Shem's descendants, and Abram shows up. This was hundreds of years later. And then we read a little bit about Abram and his ancestry in Genesis 11, and now all of a sudden, Genesis chapter 12, boom, God is speaking to him, and God is using him. And see, this is what I love about it, because you don't have to have a certain pedigree. You don't have to have a certain past for God to use you. It's a little bit tiresome to hear people that are born into money or born into riches or born into fame about how they think because they have a stage they're important, or because, and then maybe somebody who doesn't have a stage like that is not important. Well, God sees it the opposite. God tends to use people that seem to be the ones that have been forgotten, or the ones that have been disqualified. God seems to use those people to do great things for him. And that's Abram's story, or Abraham. That's his story, because all of a sudden he just shows up kind of out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden we consider, not all of a sudden, but you know what I mean. All of a sudden we consider Abraham the father of our faith. The Jews consider Abraham the father of their faith. Even the Muslims look at Abraham in very high regard in their faith. And so here we have a man who came from, literally, it seems like came from nothing, and was somebody who literally changed the world. And to me, that's exciting, because why, if God can do that with Abraham, why can't he do that with me? If God can do it with me or Abraham, why can't he do it with you? See, we want to disqualify ourselves for all sorts of reasons why God can't do something special in me, but I don't see any reason why Abraham qualified for anything more than what you and I would qualify for. And so it's exciting to think about the possibility that God could use someone like you or I to do great things for him. And like Abraham, The book of Galatians says this about Abraham. I want to read this verse about him because it's a great way to put it in perspective about what Abraham accomplished through his life. It says, Galatians 3:6-7 says, just as Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Therefore, know that only those who are of faith are sons of Abraham. So what was Abraham's big deal? He knew how to trust God. He knew how to believe God. And the Bible called him a man of faith, a man of righteousness. Now, that's not a hard prerequisite. That's not a long list. It's easier said than done, but it's not difficult to understand. If you want to be a person used by God, if you want to be a person used by faith, if you want to see God turn your trials into triumphs, Abraham had many trials, but he had many triumphs. How did that happen? Because he allowed God to do the work in his life. But how did he do it? What did he do that qualified him for that? Well, it's very simple. He learned how to believe God. That's the simplicity of our faith. That's the simplicity of what Abraham did. And that's the simplicity of the fact that Abraham was counted righteous because he knew how to believe God, and he did what he needed to do to demonstrate to God that he believed him. Was it easy? No, not always. Very rarely is it easy to live by faith. He did many, many things by faith that you and I would maybe find difficult today, but I'm sure he found it difficult as well. But the key is he just simply learned how to believe God. He learned how to trust God. He learned how to have faith that God was going to do something for him. And that's exactly what you and I can do today and be used by God. Hey, that's our challenge. Just learn how to believe God, learn how to trust God, give your cares to him, and watch him do something great. Turn your trial into triumph. Hey, thanks for joining me tonight. It's a blast to teach these to you, and I hope you're getting something out of it. We'll see you again next week on our Trials to Triumph.